What if 99.9% of doctors did not know about one of the best ways to reduce the severity and symptoms of sleep apnea, but your mom did? That's right, if your mom was anything like my mom, she actually was giving the advice to treat sleep apnea all along. And the best part about this does not require you to rely on a CPAP or to rely on mouth guards. You can make significant improvements with just your mother's advice. It's represented by this little funny comic, which is if you keep making that face, like my mom always told me, if you keep making that face, it's going to get stuck like that. Now, it's a joke, but also it is an important process because when you actually change the posture and tone of your muscles in your airways at night, then that allows you to snore less, breathe better, and sleep more deeply when you have sleep apnea. So that's why in this episode, we're going to talk about sleep apnea exercises that can help strengthen your airways for better sleep. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you one of my top picks of an exercise so that you can be as efficient with your time. So make sure you stick with me because we have a lot of great information to cover. First and foremost, does this stuff even work? What the heck am I talking about? We're going to go over a few of the key pieces of research in the sleep apnea literature. One of them is out of Canada, which I'm very surprised that Canadians too can do science. I really applaud their efforts. I heard they just recently got electricity. That's a joke, okay? But what isn't a joke is what they found with the effects of 1 week of training the tongue. What they found, as highlighted here, is that just 1 week was able to reduce the severity of sleep apnea as measured by your AHI. That's the number you would get on a sleep study. It stands for apnea hypopnea index. If you have mild sleep apnea, you're somewhere from 5 to 15. If you have moderate, you're somewhere from 15 to 30. If you have severe, you're over 30. What happened in the study is that it was reduced by 75% from about 21 to 16. And the events during REM sleep, which are some of the most important events, because during REM sleep, sleep apnea often gets worse. That's another story for another day. For now, you just need to know it was cut in half during that part of sleep from 32 to 16 from 1 week of doing tongue exercises. And I'm going to give you, in a moment, we're going to talk about how to replicate this for yourself in a little bit later. But for now, we're just going to keep stacking on the proof of this. Another article on the effectiveness of oropharyngeal, your new favorite word, oropharyngeal exercises. That is the fanciest way you could say mouth and throat. That's the scientific way to say it. And now you have a new favorite Scrabble word, if anything, from this episode. What they found here in doing these exercises, which were aimed at the mouth and also the palate and the tongue, everything you can imagine from your mouth down to the back of your throat. And in doing these exercises, and they looked at a lot of different studies. This isn't just one study. They took many different studies and combined the data so that they could get the best picture of what really happens. This is known as a meta-analysis, and it's one of the gold standards of research. And what they found was that it reduced daytime sleepiness by 4.5 points, and all that means for you in fancy science speak is that these participants, they actually reduced their daytime sleepiness by about 30%. It also showed that they improved sleep quality by 4 points, which correlated to an increase in sleep quality by 25%. And then it reduced the sleep apnea severity by 13 points. That is huge. That is going from borderline severe into the mild range. That's how great that can be. 13 points just from those mouth to the back of the throat exercises. And then a last study is about lip training, which sometimes is included in the literature about oropharyngeal airway exercises. Sometimes it's not. For some reason, the lips are just left out of the equation. But when you study that specifically, it's been shown to reduce someone's AHI from 12.2 to 3.9. That's also known as no clinically obvious sleep apnea. Someone like this could walk out of the sleep lab, walk out of the doctor's office without a clinical need to use a CPAP, mouthguard, or anything else. And I want to clear up the common misconception. 0 is not the goal. Less than 5 is the goal. Because you can have a score of like 2, 3, 4, and that can be just fine because your body is more resilient and your sleep quality is far, far better. So for someone like this could be completely transformative and taking them from tired throughout the day to just functioning normally. Now we understand that this works and it's not just some weird thing that you do with your tongue in your mouth. It's really worth doing. And how it works is exactly what I mentioned in a very joking way before. The more you do these exercises, where we'll show you in a moment, where you're pursing your lips together or holding your tongue in a certain position, this will actually target some of the core factors of sleep apnea that I'll show you next in the progression of sleep disordered breathing. And then as you train these muscles in your oropharyngeal component, it will actually start to act as a posture muscle. Here's what I mean. When you do bicep curls, that's training your muscle to contract. But we don't really use our biceps as posture muscles, whereas our lower back, that's a posture muscle. So if we strengthen that, we actually have better posture throughout the day because that muscle is used so often. Now, the same thing applies to your tongue, your mouth, back of the throat, all those different muscles. If you strengthen them, that will help keep their tone up at night, which allows them to work a lot better. I'll explain why that is in a moment. But nonetheless, you need to know this progression, which is a low tongue posture leads to mouth breathing, leads to noisy breathing, leads to snoring, leads to sleep apnea. Now, in everybody, this may not be the case. Some people may skip over snoring and go to sleep apnea right away. That's totally possible. But the point being is that some of the first steps in the progression of bad breathing at night, like sleep apnea, is a low tongue posture and mouth breathing. And then this will lead to many different problems. But again, key point, low tongue posture, mouth breathing. We will talk about how to counteract this next. But you first need to understand the reason this is important is because if you have a low tongue posture, it will reduce the space in your airway. Let's look at this. Quite simply, if the tongue is all the way back, that will block off the airway. But there's a bigger problem with that because it's not always blocking off your airway. But what it is doing, it's narrowing your airway, which will lead to you having a sensation or physiologically like you're breathing through a straw. Because if that tongue goes back, then that will reduce the space in the airway. It's more narrow. Now you're having to breathe through a straw. Just like if you breathe through a straw right now, you would have to breathe faster to get the same amount of air. And that's the pattern your body will actually get stuck in. Then as a result, instead of breathing through your nose, since your body needs more air, it is going to force mouth breathing to happen just by sheer physics. So if we can address the tongue posture, address the mouth breathing, this will reverse a lot of these problems. Because the biggest problem of the fast inhale, okay, and we'll talk about this more in other videos in this series. We're just working on the muscles right now. But the biggest problem is when you have a fast inhale, this will pull the tongue back even more. So if your tongue is already in a low posture towards the back of the throat, a fast inhale is going to pull it back that much sooner. If you have your tongue posture in a good position, even before you fix the fast inhale, it's not going to get pulled back as much. And that's why you see those big reductions in severity and big improvements in symptoms. So once again, fast inhale, tongue gets pulled back, airway gets blocked. However, if we work on reducing mouth breathing and improving the tongue posture, you will slow your breathing down. There's many ways to do this, like breathing exercises and other exercises we'll talk about in future episodes. But for now, let's just focus on the muscles. So there's a few very important concepts to know about these muscles before we get into the top exercise that is going to help you here. I'm not going to give you a big exercise program that you're going to do one day and forget the next. Just something super simple and super easy you can stick to. It's going to be great. First, we need to understand tongue protrusion. This is the fanciest way you could say stick your tongue out. Because if we have an issue with low tongue posture, like we mentioned, well, you can fix that by just bringing your tongue forward. And then the other way is to bring it up. So forward and up will keep it out of the back of your throat. Pretty easy to understand. We want to make sure we train the muscles around your lips because that will also help keep your tongue in a good position and it will help your body shift away from mouth breathing and back to nasal breathing. So what's the best way to do this? It's called the squeeze. We're going to do this together. It's going to be somewhat embarrassing. That's fine because I want you to sleep better. Okay, so we're going to do this and really walk through it. It's a few easy steps. First, this diagram explains it pretty well. You're going to bring the tip of your tongue to the back of your front teeth. Okay, so do that. And then the next step is to bring the middle of your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Let's do this together. Step 1, tip. Step 2, middle of the tongue to the roof. Okay, so feel that. And then once you're in that position, so tip, middle, then you want to push your tongue into the back of your teeth as hard as you can. Let's do it. So let's get into position first. Tip, middle, and then push forward. Now, if you do this hard enough, some people will get a tongue cramp, and you may hate me for that, but I'm doing it because it's important for you. What this does is it helps us put the tongue into a better posture. We're going out and we're going up. Now, to make this even more powerful is adding in a little bit of muscular tension in these muscles right here. And it's pretty simple. We'll talk about this in isolation, then we'll connect it with the other thing we just did. So it's all together, the squeeze. This one's pretty simple. Just bring your lips together as if your life depended on it. Maybe if you need a straw or your finger, but you just really put your lips together as strongly as possible. You can even blow them out a little bit, so it may look like this or this. Either way, you want to squeeze your lip muscles as much as you can. So let's do that just in isolation one more time. So just squeeze. If you want a little bit extra, you can add a little air there. Okay, let's combine it all together. So tip of the tongue and then middle of the tongue that we're going to get in position. Now push that tongue forward while maintaining that position. And then we're going to add in the lips. This may be difficult. You may need to rewind that. It takes some coordination getting it for the first time, and sometimes you may get a big old cramp just everywhere in your face. It's a good sign. And we'll do it one more time. So get into position, tip, middle. All right, push the tongue forward. And then lips. And there you go. That's called the squeeze. Now, how do you best do this? Since these are posture muscles, it's not so much like a typical workout routine where you do 5 sets of 5 reps of squat, whatever, what have you. You want to do it in longer durations. And what I recommend you do is to pick one mindless time of the day. Maybe it's when you're checking emails, maybe it's when you're driving, maybe it's when you're in a meeting that you're wondering, why are we even having this meeting? You should have just sent an email. Anyway, you want to get into that position, and what you're going to do, don't have a set time, but think of it like this. You get into position, and then you pulse the intensity. So get into position, and then contract really hard, like move your tongue forward, squeeze your lips together, and do that for about 10 seconds, as hard as you can. That was probably 10 seconds. And then still hold it a little bit, not as intensely. And then about sometime later, it could be anywhere from 10 seconds to 30 seconds to 60 seconds, start to pulse it again. And so you just go through these pulsations of these exercises. This is effectively an isometric exercise that will strengthen the posture muscles so that at night those muscles will be in the correct posture. And if you wanted to help that effect transfer over as much as possible, doing them right before bed is also a really smart idea. So that's the squeeze exercise that we did together, which is going to be great because it tackles some of the most common muscular issues people have in sleep apnea. Now, There are going to be many other common deficits, and sometimes you need something that is a little bit stronger, or you need something to target just one specific deficit. So that's why in the next episode, I want to talk about everybody's favorite thing, which is the didgeridoo. This long instrument from Australia, I believe. I could be wrong on that. Pretty sure it's Australian. Nonetheless, the didgeridoo for sleep apnea, what that looks like, and how you can get the same benefits without having to actually use a didgeridoo. So all you gotta do is click the video on the screen when that episode is available. If it is not, then just make sure that you click subscribe so you don't miss out. Make sure you click the subscribe button, and then I think there's a notification bell. You just press that, and then you're good to go. Now, if you want a really personalized and really fast path out of sleep apnea once and for all, then what I would want to offer you is our free one-on-one evaluation session. That's at ochnow.com/talk. Once you're there, fill out a form, pick a time, pick a day, and we call you then. And if you're someone who loves the videos, likes to keep grabbing those tips and going about it at your own pace, that is more than enough. You will be perfectly fine. It'll just be at your own pace and having to work things out in your own time. For those who want to really have the most accelerated path where we're fixing those complex issues for you, then that free one-on-one session is for you. So go to ochnow.com/talk. Just go ahead, write it down, type it into your browser, and then it's as simple as that. So thank you so much for watching. So I'll see you in the next episode, or I'll talk to you soon.